One of the most thrilling things in the NBA is an incredible comeback. When a team is seemingly on the ropes but fights back with stop after stop and hits clutch shot after clutch shot. Thrilling back and forth battles between great teams are amazing to watch, but there is something truly special about an underdog fighting back in a tough game. This video will cover the 10 greatest NBA comebacks of all time, taking into account how far behind they were, how thrilling the end was, and how high the stakes of the game were. Starting off at number 10, we have the biggest halftime margin comeback in playoff history. The Cleveland Cavaliers trailed the Indiana Pacers by 25 points at halftime, and trailed by 26 points at one point in the second half. But this huge margin was not enough to stop LeBron James, a man who has not lost a first-round playoff game since 2012. The game was truly incredible, as Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love sat on the bench the entire fourth quarter as LeBron James orchestrated the offense. He was simply unstoppable, draining step-back threes like they were layups and blowing past anybody to get to the rim. He also dished off multiple assists to Deron Williams, Kyle Korver, J.R. Smith, and Channing Frye, who were all instrumental in nailing threes and winning the game. Those four role players combined for 11 threes in the game, whilst LeBron had an amazing 6 himself, to go with his incredible 41 point, 13 rebound, and 12 assist stat line in one of the best comebacks in NBA history. The only reason this one wasn't higher was due to the fact that the Cavaliers swept the Pacers, and thus the stakes weren't as high as some of the other comebacks on this list. Coming at number 9 is the Washington Bullets comeback against the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 1 of the first round of the playoffs. Charles Barkley had absolutely dominated this game through the first 44 minutes and had 26 points, 22 rebounds, 9 assists, and 4 steals on great shooting splits for the 76ers. But it wouldn't be enough to steal the game, as the Bullets absolutely stormed back with an astounding 18-0 run in the last 3 minutes and 49 seconds of the game. The Bullets had a balanced scoring run, but it was that defense that won them the game, completely shutting the 76ers out of the game after they had dominated. Doing this against an average NBA team is amazing, but doing it against Charles Barkley, one of the most dominant NBA players, with a will to score that few others had, is simply phenomenal. And it was all capped off by career role player Dudley Bradley banking in a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win the game. At number 8 is actually a game I watched that got me hooked on the NBA. The Clippers' incredible 26-1 run in the first round of the playoffs against the Memphis Grizzlies. This was one of those games that when you go back to look at it, it sort of blows you away. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and their ragtag group of players of Nick Young, Reggie Evans, and a young Eric Bledsoe wiped the Grizzlies off of the court in an incredibly important game. This series would actually go to the full 7 games and was full of close contests and hard-fought wins, but none so much as this one. Nick Young drained 3 3-pointers in the final term, and the grit and grind Grizzlies couldn't believe what had happened. The Houston Rockets' shock loss to Phoenix in Game 2 of the 1994 Western Conference Semifinals comes in at number 7 on this list. And this is another game on this list with an incredible performance by Charles Barkley, but this time it was his team that surged with a huge comeback to win the game. The Suns were trailing by 20 points with 10 minutes remaining in this crucial playoff game, but then the Suns came storming back to send the game to overtime and lead the game to a 5-minute battle between the two great teams. Barkley had an astounding 34 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks as he wheeled his team back into the game, before now Boston Celtics general manager Danny Ainge drew a 3-pointer to send the game to overtime, where his team managed to grab the win from the Rockets. But this win wasn't enough to capture the series, as the Houston Rockets won it in 7 games and eventually won the NBA championship in one of the toughest fought playoffs of all time. At number 6 is our first regular season game, and whilst it doesn't have the high stakes of the playoffs, we couldn't leave off an incredible 35-point comeback from the Sacramento Kings against the Chicago Bulls. A young Derrick Rose and an unproven Chicago Bulls team absolutely dominated the then-rookie Tyreke Evans through the first half and led by 35 points in the early stages of the second half. But rookie Tyreke Evans was an absolute force to be reckoned with, averaging his best stat line in his first year in the league. And whilst he would never reach these heights again, the comeback he delivered against the Bulls will be forever remembered. He did what he was renowned for: amazing crossovers, drives to the lane, smart passing, and phenomenal finishes at the rim. He played an incredible 44 minutes and finished with 23 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals as he led his team to the second biggest comeback in NBA history. At number 5, we have Brandon Roy's amazing comeback against the eventual champions, the Dallas Mavericks, in 2011, which is one of my personal favourite NBA moments. Brandon Roy was an incredibly talented shooting guard in the NBA, who could get anywhere on the floor, pull up from anywhere, finished well with both hands, was a smart passer, and had a post-game that was reminiscent of other great guards such as Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. But his career was cut short by absolutely brutal knee injuries, and he never managed to reach his full potential, and began his decline in the 2010-2011 season. But Roy would turn back the clock one last time against the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas had led by 23 points with just 1 minute left in the third quarter in a pivotal Game 4, and Nicholas Batum admits that the whole team was hanging their heads expecting a loss. Brandon Roy led the charge with 18 points and 4 assists in the final quarter, including an incredible and one three-pointer to claw his way back into the game. The Blazers would end up losing to the Mavericks in 6 games, and Roy would retire as his knees ended his career at just 27 years old. And for that reason, this comeback holds a special place in my heart, and that of all Blazers and Brandon Roy fans. Coming in at number 4, we have Game 1 of the huge 1995 finals between the Houston Rockets and the Orlando Magic. This finals was pitted as a huge battle between Hakeem Olajuwon and the young and freakishly athletic Shaquille O'Neal. And whilst the series ended up in a disappointing sweep, who knows what would have happened if the Rockets hadn't pulled together one of the greatest comebacks of all time in Game 1. The Rockets trailed by 20 points at one point, before Kenny Smith and the Dream took over. Kenny Smith poured on 7 3-pointers in an era where this was incredible, and it was a finals record for a very long time. He finished with 23 points and 9 assists with only 1 turnover, doing so on an incredible 63.5% shooting from deep. But it was Hakeem who would seal the game, finishing with 31 points, 6 boards, 7 assists, 4 blocks, and 2 steals. And with the game tied in the first overtime, Hakeem tipped the ball in with 0.3 seconds left to win the game and get the momentum for the Rockets for the whole finals. Momentum that they would never give up. Coming in at number 3 is the biggest comeback in NBA history. The Utah Jazz trailed the Denver Nuggets by 34 points at halftime and by 36 points at one point in the game. But this was a Jazz team that was tried and tested. Stockton and Malone had been on the roster and playing with each other for as long as anyone could remember, and they weren't ever truly out of a game. The Jazz went on a storming run and closed the game with the Nuggets and outscored them 71-33 in the second half, ending up winning the game by 4 points, marking a 40-point turnaround. Karl Malone, ever consistent, had 31 points, 17 boards, and 6 assists, whilst now coach Jeff Hornacek drained 29 points on the way to the biggest comeback ever. But it only comes in at number 3. Because coming in at number 2, we have a game from one of the most controversial playoff series of all time. Game 4 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Los Angeles Lakers and Sacramento Kings. And this game was absolutely murdered with controversy. The Lakers were down 2-1 in the series and on the ropes in Game 4. Lose this and they would be down 3-1 and likely lose the series. And while the game wasn't one of the more controversial games in terms of refereeing, there was still some off calls by the refs in the last quarter. But the Sacramento Kings had a 24-point lead and had no business losing to the Lakers in this game. That is until Robert Horry, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe Bryant decided to do something about it. They played relentless defense and nailed shot after shot until they found themselves down 2 on the final possession. Kobe Bryant had the final shot called for him and missed a jumper that would have tied the game, before Shaq missed the game-tying layup from just 3 feet away. And then Vlad Divac would make the worst play of his career. He back-tapped the rebound to try and end the game, only for it to be gathered by big shot Bob Horry, who calmly collected the ball and drained the 3 to win the game. The Lakers would go on to win the series and complete their 3-peat championship, making this the second greatest comeback of all time. But finally, at number 1, we have the recent and amazing comeback by the Boston Celtics against the Los Angeles Lakers in 2008. The two most storied franchises in NBA history competing in the finals is always going to be amazing. But this series had everything. Hotly contested, with every game except for the last one being close. But Game 4 was both special and pivotal. Boston were leading the series 2-1, and with a 24-point lead in the first half, the Lakers looked set to tie the series and wrestle back home court advantage. But the big three of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen had other ideas, and just wouldn't give up on the game, and over the second half went on a 23-3 run as Paul Pierce switched to defend Kobe Bryant. But it was bench player James Posey who came up absolutely huge for the Celtics and drilled 4 threes and scored 18 points in the miraculous win. And whilst Phil Jackson may have told his players the series and the finals weren't over, they were. The huge stakes of the game, the long comeback, the lockdown of Kobe Bryant by Paul Pierce, and the atmosphere you feel watching the game makes this number 1. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to subscribe for more NBA videos and like this video as well, as it really helps out.